Sword Art Online is coming in real life. Are you guys ready to full dive? Because we're a lot closer than you might think. Especially with the crazy news update about the Halfdive VR headset. Now, the company DiverX is a Japanese startup who are trying to create a unique VR headset that they call the Halfdive. And they released a video and campaign explaining how the headset works. Because compared to the other models on the market, this one is used by laying down, just like in the SAO anime. But you don't have to worry about your brain, because unlike SAO, Halfdive is not a brain-computer interface. So it won't be reading or sending signals directly to your brain. But instead, it will try to stimulate the senses like vision, hearing, and touch by using external feedback devices and some other crazy technologies. So let's talk about how this headset works. First of all, it can only be used by the gamer laying down on their bed. And this makes sure that there is no weight of the headset itself laying on their face. That also means that the makers can put as much technology in there that they want without having to worry about the weight of the headset. And this is also the reason why there's a crazy screen and huge field of view built into it. But at the same time, this might also create a problem. And that is, of course, the head movement. Because while laying down, it is not possible to move your head completely around. Well, unless you're an owl or something. Now, the company explains that this will be called 4.5 degrees of freedom, which means that it will still be possible to turn your head around from left to right, and also from up to down, but not all the way around. So there will definitely be limitations to how the head movement can work, especially compared to something like the Quest 2 that uses 6 degrees of freedom instead, where you can walk, duck, move around wherever you want. But there's a lot more crazy tech built into it. One of those being a fan module. Now what this does is that it creates a wind feedback system. That means the gamer will be able to feel the air in virtual reality as well. And this can really add to the immersion. Just imagine walking through a big sandstorm or a huge blizzard and feeling every single part of it. Or maybe just a small breeze when you go for a walk on the beach. Now on the back of the headset there's also a vibration module, which can give the user force feedback with certain actions in game, to make it feel even more realistic. And that gets us to the crazy controllers. Now we finally got news about how these controllers would work. And they do this by using something we have never seen before in the virtual reality industry. Because they use a wired coil that attaches the headset to the controllers itself. And by doing so, creating a force feedback sensation for when you're grasping or throwing an object. While the controllers itself will be very similar to something like the Steam VR knuckle controllers. This will be a revolution for VR controller haptics if they can pull it off. And I definitely have my question marks with how well this will work, especially if you think about making quick movements or using a lot of force. But the craziest part about the controllers is that it will have feet controllers as well, that will be attached around the bottom of your foot, so you can simulate walking and running, while at the same time being able to give you feedback when you're, for example, making a big jump or having the feeling of an earthquake in virtual reality. Now altogether, this sounds like a completely crazy virtual reality headset. But even though it sounds amazing on paper, it is also important to understand that it has its limitations as well. One of the biggest one being is that this is from a startup company. And while the recently announced Meta, that was before called Oculus, also started out as a startup company, it still has to show that they can actually produce this headset before they get too much credit. And the same goes for the limitations of the headset itself. Think about the limits of the head movement, but also the movement of your controllers and legs. But even so, it's awesome to see a company trying to create a Sword Art Online inspired virtual reality headset.